The first thing you need to understand about humans is that they are fundamentally broken. Not in the way a faulty engine is broken, where you can identify the problem, replace a part, and move on with your life. No. Humans are broken in the way that makes you question whether the universe itself made a clerical error when it allowed their species to develop sentience. My name is Vex, just Vex. One syllable, easy to remember, impossible to mispronounce. I am a coordinator for the Galactic Assessment Bureau, which is a fancy way of saying I get paid to watch species fail at things they should not be attempting in the first place. It is not a glamorous job, but someone has to document the cosmic train wrecks, and apparently that someone is me. The human in question? His name was Marcus Webb. Now, before you start thinking this is some grand tale of heroism and triumph, let me stop you right there. Marcus Webb was not special. He was not a decorated soldier. He was not a genius. He was not even particularly tall, which apparently matters to humans for reasons nobody has been able to explain to me adequately. Marcus Webb was a maintenance technician from a mining station orbiting Europa, one of those frozen chunks of ice that humans inexplicably decided was worth colonizing. He had brown hair, brown eyes, a face that could be described as aggressively average. The kind of human you would pass in a corridor and immediately forget existed. His personnel file listed his hobbies as fixing things that are not technically broken yet and arguing with automated systems. Perfect simulation fodder, in other words. The trials of Krell were designed 3,000 cycles ago by the Krell Dominion, back when they still had a Dominion to speak of. The simulation was meant to be the ultimate test of a species' capacity for survival, combat strategy, and most importantly, knowing when to quit. It had 743 levels. Nobody had ever made it past level 20. Nobody. The Yithians tried. Their best warrior lasted 4 hours before the simulation liquefied his brain matter through sheer psychological pressure. The Draconites sent their champion. She made it to level 19, and then voluntarily withdrew, citing existential dread beyond mortal comprehension. In her exit interview, even the Thex, those floating squid creatures who think they are better than everyone else because they can see in 9 dimensions, tapped out at level 15. So when the Human Integration Committee decided that humanity should take the trials as part of their application for Galactic Council membership, I may have laughed out loud. In the middle of the committee chamber, for approximately 45 seconds, I was not reprimanded because, let us be honest here, everyone else was thinking the same thing. Humans had been part of the galactic community for exactly 9 standard cycles. 9. They had barely figured out faster than light travel without accidentally creating localized temporal paradoxes. They still used projectile weapons, as if throwing small pieces of metal at high velocity was an acceptable solution to conflict in the year 3847. But the Council has rules, and one of those rules states that any species seeking full membership must complete the trials of Krell. It is tradition. It is law. It is, I suspect, also a way for older species to haze the newcomers, but nobody says that part out loud. The Human Integration Committee submitted their candidate 3 cycles ago, Marcus Webb. When I pulled up his file, I spent a good 10 minutes staring at my display screen, waiting for the punchline. This had to be a joke. This had to be humanity's way of saying they were not interested in council membership after all. Maybe they were smarter than I gave them credit for. But no. The file was legitimate, authenticated, stamped with all the proper authorization codes. They sent a maintenance worker. I asked my assistant, Krill, who has the unfortunate distinction of being both competent and patient with my commentary. Krill clicked his mandibles together in what I had learned to recognize as his version of a sigh. Apparently, Administrator Vex, the human selection process involves something called a lottery. This individual's name was selected at random from a pool of volunteers. A lottery. Yes, Administrator. They randomly selected someone to potentially die in the most psychologically devastating simulation ever created. That appears to be correct. Administrator. I rubbed my sensory stalks, feeling a headache forming in my primary ganglion. Do they understand that this is not a game show? That the trials have a 99.8% failure rate? That most participants require extensive psychological rehabilitation afterwards? The human representative assured us they understood the risks, Krill said, which I have learned is diplomatic speak for they absolutely do not understand the risks. Fine, fine. If humanity wanted to humiliate itself in front of the entire Galactic Council, who was I to stop them? I approved the requisition forms, scheduled the simulation for the following cycle, and prepared my usual speech about dignity and failure. What I did not prepare for was Marcus Webb himself. He arrived at the testing facility on schedule, which was already suspicious. Most species candidates arrive early, desperate to prove their punctuality and discipline. Marcus Webb arrived exactly on time, carrying a small pack and drinking something from a cylindrical container that my scanners identified as coffee, a mild stimulant humans consume in quantities that should theoretically be lethal. Morning, he said, nodding at me. Not good morning. Not greetings, Administrator. Just morning, as if we were neighbors sharing a walkway, not about to potentially witness his complete mental breakdown. You are Marcus Webb? I asked, though I knew the answer. Sometimes you ask obvious questions because you are hoping reality will correct itself. That would be me. Yeah, he said, taking another sip of his coffee. This the place where I do the murder simulation thing? The trials of Krell are not murder, I said, perhaps too defensively. They are a comprehensive assessment of survival capability, strategic thinking, and psychological fortitude. Right, Marcus said, nodding as if I had just explained the weather. But there is murder involved, yeah? I read the briefing. Lots of stuff trying to kill me in creative ways. That is an oversimplification, but not entirely inaccurate. Good enough for me. He drained the rest of his coffee and tossed the container into a recycling port with disturbing accuracy. So, do I just hop in, or is there like a waiver I need to sign? You guys seem like the type to have paperwork. Krill handed him a data pad. Marcus scrolled through it so fast there was no possible way he actually read any of it, pressed his thumb to the authorization field, and handed it back. Great. Let us get this over with. I have got a shift on Tuesday and I would really prefer not to miss it. I stared at him. You understand that the average trial duration is between 6 and 14 hours? And that the psychological debrief can take several days? Yeah, I saw that in the briefing. He shrugged. But like I said, I have got a shift. Tony covers for me sometimes, but he is bad with the coolant regulators, and I do not trust him not to flood the lower decks again. This human was concerned about coolant regulators while standing at the entrance to a simulation that had broken the minds of champions. I was beginning to understand why humanity had only been spacefaring for 9 cycles. The preparation chamber was standard. White walls, adjustable lighting, the faint hum of processing units running their diagnostic checks. In the center of the room sat the neural interface chair, which looks far more ominous than it actually is. The headset, however, is legitimately ominous. It has 37 contact points that interface directly with the subject's neural pathways, and when it activates, most candidates describe the sensation as deeply unsettling. Marcus sat down without hesitation, which was red flag number 3. Red flag number 1 was his punctuality. Red flag number 2 was his complete lack of nervousness. Most candidates at least have the decency to look concerned. Comfortable? I asked, adjusting the neural contact points. Been worse, Marcus said. One time I had to crawl through a maintenance shaft that was not designed for anyone bigger than a child. I was stuck for 6 hours before they cut me out. This is way better. How reassuring. Krill ran through the standard safety protocols while I calibrated the neural interface. Everything checked out. Stable vitals, normal brain activity, no signs of pre-existing psychological trauma that would disqualify him from participation. Marcus Webb, I said, reading from my prepared script, because protocols exist for a reason. You are about to enter the trials of Krell. The simulation will test every aspect of your survival instinct, combat ability, and mental resilience. You may withdraw at any time by vocalizing the safe word, which is Zephyr. Do you understand? Zephyr. Got it. Weird choice, but okay. Do you have any final questions before we begin? Marcus thought about it for a moment, which was the first time he had paused to consider anything since arriving. Yeah, actually, he said. If I do okay in this thing, do I get like a certificate or something? Because I feel like that would look great in my personnel file. I may have made a noise that Krill later described as unprofessional. If you complete even a fraction of the trials, Marcus Webb, you will receive far more than a certificate. You will receive the respect of the entire Galactic Council. Cool, cool. But like also maybe a certificate? Physical proof is nice. We will discuss commemorative documentation if you survive the first level, I said, activating the interface sequence. The neural headset hummed to life, casting a faint blue glow across Marcus's face. His eyes fluttered closed as the connection established, his breathing evening out as the simulation began its initialization protocols. Entering trial level 1 in 3, 2, 1, Krill announced. The monitors lit up, displaying Marcus's point of view within the simulation. Level 1 is always the same. You wake up in a ruined city under a red sky. The air is thick with ash. In the distance, something howls. Your objective appears in your field of vision. Survive for 1 hour. Simple, right? Wrong. Level 1 is designed to establish baseline stress responses. The environment is hostile but not immediately lethal. The threats are present but avoidable. What makes it effective is the atmosphere, and the sense of wrongness. The feeling that something terrible is about to happen, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Most candidates spend the first 20 minutes frozen in place, trying to process the sensory information. Marcus Webb looked around, scratched his head, and said out loud, Looks like Detroit. I am not familiar with Detroit, but his tone suggested this was not a compliment. He started walking. Not running. Not hiding. Just walking, hands in his pockets, as if he were taking a casual stroll through a perfectly safe environment. Is he aware that this is a survival scenario? Krill asked, leaning closer to the monitors. I explained the parameters quite clearly, I said, watching as Marcus examined a collapsed building with what appeared to be professional interest rather than fear. The creature emerged from the rubble. Standard level 1 design, all teeth and bad intentions. 4 meters tall, covered in spiked armor plating, eyes that glow with predatory hunger. Marcus looked at it. The creature looked at Marcus. Okay, Marcus said. That is new. The creature charged. Marcus turned and ran, which was the correct response. What was not the correct response was the running commentary he provided while doing so. Big guy, huh? Yeah, you are a big guy. Asked 2. That is not great for me. Okay, thinking, I need to think. He ducked into a building, and the creature followed, demolishing the doorway in the process. Bad idea, this was a bad idea, Marcus muttered, but he kept moving, navigating through the building's interior with surprising speed. There has got to be something useful in here. Come on, standard video game rules. Supplies in the buildings. Always supplies in the buildings. He thinks this is a game, I said flatly. To be fair, Administrator, it is technically a simulation, Krill pointed out. That is not the point. Marcus found a piece of rebar, rusted and bent but still solid metal. He grabbed it, tested its weight, and turned to face the creature that was currently tearing through walls to reach him. Not ideal, he said, but I have worked with worse. The creature lunged. Marcus sidestepped, swung the rebar, and connected with what I suppose could generously be called the creature's kneecap. The impact barely slowed it down, but Marcus was already moving again, using his makeshift weapon to vault himself onto a partially collapsed staircase. Keep moving, do not stop moving, he chanted to himself, climbing higher while the creature destroyed the level below him. It continued like this for 30 minutes. Marcus running, improvising, and talking to himself in a constant stream of consciousness that should have been panic but instead sounded like someone working through a particularly annoying technical problem. If I can just get to the roof, maybe I can drop something on it. Do buildings have structural weak points in simulations? They should, right? That feels like a thing they would include for realism. He reached the roof. The creature followed, punching through the final floor with enough force to send debris flying. Marcus ran to the edge, looked down at the 50-meter drop, looked back at the creature, and made a decision that I can only describe as cosmically stupid. He jumped, not off the building, onto the creature. Using the momentum of his running start, Marcus leaped, landed on the creature's back, and jammed his piece of rebar through a gap in its armor plating. The creature shrieked, thrashing wildly. Marcus held on with the kind of desperate determination usually reserved for species whose primary survival strategy is too stubborn to die properly. The creature slammed itself against walls, trying to dislodge him. Marcus held on, working the rebar deeper, until finally, mercifully, the creature collapsed. The simulation timer reached 1 hour. Level 1 complete. Marcus stood up, breathing hard, covered in simulated ash and blood, and said, "That was significantly worse than coolant maintenance." In my observation chamber, I realized I had been holding my breath. "He completed level 1, Krill said unnecessarily. "I have eyes, Krill. Should we continue to level 2? I should have said no. Protocol dictates a rest period between levels. But Marcus Webb was already looking around the simulation environment, apparently expecting something else to try to kill him, and I found myself curious. Just how far could this aggressively average human actually get? "Continue to level 2, I said. The simulation shifted. The ruined city dissolved, replaced by a dense forest at night. The objective changed: locate and secure the extraction point within 2 hours while avoiding hostile forces. Level 2 introduces stealth mechanics and strategic thinking. Most candidates either move too quickly and attract attention or move too slowly and fail the time requirement. It requires careful balance, patience, and above all, silence." Marcus Webb looked at the dark forest, sighed deeply, and said, "Of course it is a forest at night. Why would it be anything else?" Then he started singing. I am not joking. He started singing what my translator identified as a human song called "The Wheels on the Bus." "What is he doing?" Krill asked, mandibles clicking in confusion. "I have absolutely no idea," I said, watching as Marcus walked through the forest, maintaining a steady rhythm with his off-key singing. "The hostile forces in level 2 are nocturnal predators. They hunt by sound and movement. The simulation parameters make them attracted to panicked, irregular noises. Fear, heavy breathing, crying, but steady, rhythmic singing. The predators did not know what to make of it. One emerged from the shadows, observed Marcus for several seconds, and then retreated. Another approached from a different angle, tracking him for nearly 5 minutes, before also deciding that whatever this human was doing did not fit any recognizable prey behavior pattern. Marcus just kept walking, kept singing, occasionally pausing to examine trees or check his direction. "The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round," he sang, completely unaware that he had accidentally stumbled into a survival strategy that should not work but apparently did. He reached the extraction point with 40 minutes to spare. Level 2 complete. "That should not have worked," I said to nobody in particular. "And yet it did," Krill observed. "Level 3 loaded. Desert environment. Extreme heat. Limited water supplies. Objective: survive 72 simulated hours while managing resources." Marcus took one look at the endless sand dunes, felt the artificial heat wash over him, and laughed. Actually laughed. Laughed. "You know what?" he said to the empty desert. "I have done Europa maintenance in a broken suit. This is fine. This is totally fine." It was, in fact, not fine. Level 3 had killed candidates through dehydration, heat stroke, and despair. The psychological pressure of being alone in an endless wasteland breaks most people within the first simulated day. Marcus Webb rationed his water with the precision of someone who actually understood resource management, created a shelter using debris he found half buried in sand, and spent the first simulated night talking to himself about proper cooling system maintenance procedures. See, the thing people do not understand about coolant regulators is that they are actually pretty straightforward. You have got your input valve, your output valve, and your pressure sensors. Keep everything balanced, and you are golden. Let it drift and suddenly you have got frozen pipes or, worse, burst pipes, and then everyone is mad at you. He survived the first day, then the second. On the third day, he dug up what appeared to be an ancient water cache, purely by accident while trying to create a deeper shelter to escape the midday heat. "Oh, hey, jackpot," he said, discovering enough water to last another week if needed. Level 3 complete. I stopped the simulation. Marcus blinked as the neural interface disconnected, returning him to the preparation chamber. He looked around, slightly disoriented, and asked, "We done, or is there more?" "There are 740 more levels," I said slowly. "But we are stopping here for today." "Oh, okay, cool." He stood up, stretched, and cracked his neck in a way that sounded medically concerning. "Same time tomorrow? You want to continue?" "I mean, yeah, I am weirdly invested now. Plus, I still want that certificate." I looked at Krill. Krill looked at me. Marcus Webb had just completed 3 levels of the Trials of Krell in one session. 3 levels that should have taken him minimum 6 hours had taken him 4. And he was asking to continue. Either humanity was far more capable than anyone had estimated, or Marcus Webb was the single most fortunate idiot in the galaxy. "Same time tomorrow," I heard myself say. Marcus gave me a thumbs up, which my cultural database identified as a positive gesture, and walked out of the preparation chamber like he had just finished a routine equipment inspection. That night I filed my initial report with the Galactic Assessment Bureau. Subject Marcus Webb has completed levels 1 through 3 of the Trials of Krell. Performance exceeded all projections. Recommend continued observation. Possibility exists that human species may possess survival capabilities not previously documented. What I did not include in the report was the part where I watched the replay footage 3 times, trying to figure out if Marcus was brilliant, lucky, is, or just too ignorant to understand how much danger he was actually in. I had a sinking feeling it might be all 3, and we still had 737 levels to go. Marcus Webb showed up the next morning 7 minutes early, which immediately made me suspicious. He was carrying 2 containers of coffee this time, and when he saw me waiting in the preparation chamber, he held one out in my direction. "Brought you some," he said. "Figured you could use it. You looked tired yesterday." "I do not have the facial structure to look tired. I am a Quelix. We do not experience fatigue in ways that translate to visual cues." But I took the coffee anyway, because refusing a peace offering from a species you are actively studying feels diplomatically inappropriate. It tasted like burnt plastic mixed with regret. "This is horrible," I said. "Yeah, station coffee is pretty bad," Marcus agreed cheerfully. "You get used to it after the first 100 cups or so." Why would anyone consume 100 cups of something horrible? Because the alternative is falling asleep during a 12-hour maintenance shift and waking up to find out the atmospheric processors have stopped working and everyone is mildly hypoxic. I decided not to pursue this line of questioning further. Krill arrived moments later, reviewed the morning diagnostic reports, and gave me a look that I had learned to interpret as, "Are we really doing this again?" "Yes, Krill. We were really doing this again." Marcus settled into the neural interface chair with the same casual attitude he would probably display while sitting down for lunch. I calibrated the connection points, ran through the safety protocols for the second time in as many days, and prepared myself for whatever cosmic absurdity was about to unfold. "Ready?" I asked. "Born ready," Marcus said, which my translator initially struggled with before identifying it as a human idiom meaning absolutely nothing useful. Level 4 loaded. The simulation placed Marcus in an underground cave system. Dark. Claustrophobic. The air thick with moisture. Objective: navigate to the surface within 3 hours. Complication: the caves are home to a species of bioluminescent predators that hunt in packs. Most candidates panic immediately. The darkness is oppressive. The sense of being trapped underground triggers primal fear responses in nearly every spacefaring species we have tested. Marcus looked around, pulled out what appeared to be a small illumination device from his pocket, and said, "Oh good. Caves. Love caves. Very normal, very cool, definitely not terrifying at all." His sarcasm was noted. He started moving, keeping his light pointed at the ground to avoid announcing his position to everything within visual range, but smart, cautious, actually following reasonable survival protocols for once. Then he tripped over a rock, crashed into a wall, and his illumination device went skittering across the cave floor before plunging into an underground stream. No, Marcus scrambled after it, but the current carried it away into darkness. Are you kidding me? 10 seconds. I lasted 10 seconds with the light. He sat there for a moment in complete blackness, and I wondered if this would be the level where his luck finally ran out. "Okay," he said to himself. Okay. Think. You have been in dark maintenance tunnels before. You know how to do this. Just go slow. Use your hands. Follow the air current. Air moves toward openings. Basic stuff. You are fine. Everything is fine. Everything was not fine. The predators had detected him. 3 of them, glowing faintly blue in the darkness, were moving in from different angles. Their hunting pattern was efficient, coordinated. They would reach him in less than a minute. Marcus could not see them yet, but he heard something because he went very still. "That is not water," he whispered. "That is definitely not water." He started moving faster, one hand on the cave wall, feeling his way through the darkness. The predators followed, matching his pace, getting closer. "If something bites me, I am going to be so mad," Marcus muttered, moving faster now, his breathing getting heavier. One of the predators lunged. Marcus must have heard it at the last second because he dropped flat, and the creature sailed over him, crashing into the opposite wall with a shriek that echoed through the entire cave system. What was that? Marcus scrambled to his feet, now running blind through the darkness. What is down here? Why is something down here? He rounded a corner, tripped again, and this time fell into another underground stream. The current grabbed him, pulled him under, and swept him away before the predators could reach him. For 30 seconds, the monitors showed nothing but churning water and Marcus thrashing, trying to find which way was up. Then the stream spat him out into a larger chamber with a natural opening in the ceiling. Sunlight poured through. The surface. Marcus dragged himself onto dry ground, coughing up water, and looked up at the hole in the ceiling. That was cheating, he said between coughs. I definitely cheated. That was not how you are supposed to solve caves. Level 4 complete. Time 42 minutes. He had accidentally stumbled into the fastest completion time we had on record for that level. I am beginning to suspect the universe actively favors this human, Krill observed. Either that, or the universe has a sense of humor, I replied. Level 5 began immediately. Marcus barely had time to catch his breath before the simulation shifted. This time, zero-gravity environment. A derelict space station. Objective: locate and repair the life support system before oxygen runs out. Time limit: 90 minutes. Additional complication: the station is structurally unstable and pieces are actively breaking off and floating away. Marcus blinked as his simulated body floated upward, adjusting to the lack of gravity. "Oh," he said. "Oh, this I can do." And then I watched something remarkable happen. For the first time since the trials began, Marcus Webb was not panicking, not improvising, not stumbling into success through sheer dumb luck. He was in his element. He moved through the zero-gravity environment with practiced ease, navigating debris fields and unstable corridors like he had been doing it his entire life. Which, I realized, he probably had been. Europa Station. Orbital facility. Low-gravity maintenance. This was his job. Okay, so life support is usually centrally located, he said, pulling himself along a corridor with casual efficiency. We are looking for the main processing unit. It should be near the core. If I were designing this station, I would put it near there it is. He found it in under 20 minutes. The life support system was damaged. Catastrophically so, wiring torn out, coolant leaking into space, control panels shattered. It should have required hours of work with specialized tools to repair. Marcus looked at it, looked at the tools floating nearby, and got to work. Bypass the secondary circuit, reroute power through the auxiliary line, patch the coolant leak with, okay, this is not proper safety procedure, but we are in a simulation, so who cares? He moved with speed and confidence, his hands working automatically, connecting systems that should not work together but somehow did under his guidance. Come on, just need to restart the main processor, and we are golden. The life support system hummed to life with 43 minutes remaining on the oxygen timer. Level 5 complete. Marcus floated there for a moment, looking absurdly pleased with himself. That was actually fun, he said. Can we do more of those? We could not do more of those, because Level 6 was a psychological horror scenario designed to break a candidate's grip on reality, and I was genuinely worried about what would happen when Marcus entered it. Level 6 places you in a scenario where nothing is as it seems. The environment shifts. People appear and disappear. Your memories feel wrong. The objective is simple: determine what is real. Most candidates withdraw from this level voluntarily because the psychological strain is too intense. Marcus appeared in a simulated space station corridor. Clean. Well lit. Normal. Too normal. A woman walked past him. She nodded. Morning, Marcus? He nodded back. Morning. Then he stopped, turned around, and watched her walk away. That was Lisa, he said slowly. But Lisa transferred to the Mars facility 6 months ago. She should not be here. Good. He was already questioning the reality of the simulation. That was the correct first step. Another person appeared. Hey Marcus, you coming to the meeting? What meeting? Marcus asked. A safety briefing. Started 5 minutes ago. You are late. I do not remember a safety briefing being scheduled. It has been scheduled for weeks, Marcus. Come on. Marcus followed, but I could see him getting more tense, more alert. He was testing the boundaries of the simulation, trying to figure out the rules. The meeting room was full of people. His co-workers, his friends, all of them looking at him expectantly. His supervisor stood at the front. Marcus, glad you could join us. We were just discussing your performance review. My performance review is not until next quarter, Marcus said. Are you sure about that? Pretty sure, yeah. The supervisor smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Maybe you should check your calendar. Marcus pulled up a simulated interface panel. The date was wrong. 3 months had passed that he could not remember. This is where most candidates start to break, when time stops making sense, when their memories do not match reality, when they cannot trust their own perceptions. Marcus stared at the date for a long moment. Then he said, Nope. Nope, the supervisor asked. Nope. This is not real. None of this is real. I am in a simulation. Nice try, though. Very unsettling. Good production values. But I am not buying it. He turned and walked out of the meeting room. The hallway had changed. Now it was the cave system from level 4. Then the desert from level 3. Then the ruined city from level 1. The simulation was trying to disorient him, make him question everything. Marcus just kept walking. Interesting technique, he said out loud. Make me doubt my reality. Get into my head. Problem is, I already know I am in a simulation. Kind of ruins the whole effect. The environments kept shifting, getting more chaotic, more desperate. Marcus sat down on the floor and waited. You know what the trick is to not going crazy? He said to no one. You accept that you do not know everything. You accept that reality is weird sometimes. And then you just deal with it. My reality right now is that I am sitting in a chair with a bunch of alien technology hooked to my brain, experiencing a very advanced computer program designed to mess with me. That is my reality. This stuff. He gestured at the shifting environment around him. This is just noise. Level 6 could not break someone who refused to be broken. The simulation gave up. The environment stabilized. A doorway appeared. Level 6 complete. I had to pause the simulation again. Not because Marcus needed a break, but because I needed a break. He just sat there, I said to Krill. He sat there and waited for it to stop. Technically a valid strategy, Krill observed. Nobody has ever done that before. Perhaps nobody else thought of it. Marcus was asking for water when we brought him out of the neural interface. Not coffee this time. Just water. He looked tired but not broken, stressed but not traumatized. That level was weird, he said. It is designed to be psychologically destabilizing, I explained. Yeah, I got that. The whole shifting reality thing was pretty obvious. He drank his water. How many levels are left? 734. Cool. Can we skip ahead to the hard ones? I stared at him. These are the hard ones, Marcus Webb. Really? Because I mean, no offense, but most of this is just basic problem solving. Stay alive. Do not panic. Figure out the objective. It is not that different from maintenance work, honestly. Krill made a choking sound. The Yithian warrior who attempted these trials described them as an assault on the very concept of existence, I said slowly. Maybe Yithians are just dramatic, Marcus suggested. I pulled up my terminal and did something I had never done before in 20 cycles of administering these trials. I accessed the emergency protocols. The ones reserved for candidates who were progressing too quickly, who needed to be tested beyond standard parameters. Marcus Webb, I said. How would you feel about attempting level 20? What happened to levels 7 through 19? They are more of the same. Survival scenarios, environmental hazards, psychological pressure. You have demonstrated competency in all relevant areas. Level 20 is different. Different how? It is the level where most champions quit, Krill said quietly. It has never been completed. Marcus considered this for approximately 5 seconds. Let us do it, he said. Level 20 loaded. The simulation placed Marcus in a room. Just a room. White walls. White floor. White ceiling. Nothing else. The objective appeared in his vision, survive. No time limit. No obvious threat. Just survive. This is the test, Marcus asked, looking around the empty space. Then the room started to get smaller. Not quickly. Slowly. Centimeter by centimeter. The walls closing in. The ceiling lowering. Over the course of hours, that room would compress down to nothing, and there was no way to stop it. The psychological pressure was immense. Watching your available space shrink. Knowing that eventually, inevitably, you would be crushed. And the only escape was to say the safe word. To quit. Most candidates lasted less than an hour before withdrawing. Marcus watched the walls move for about 30 seconds, then sat down in the center of the room. Okay, he said. This is happening. He waited. The walls crept closer. Closer. After an hour, the room had shrunk noticeably. Marcus was doing breathing exercises, keeping himself calm. After 2 hours, he had to stand up because there was not enough space to sit comfortably. After 3 hours, his shoulders were almost touching the walls on either side. This is not fun anymore, he said, but his voice was steady. After 4 hours, he was crouched, the ceiling pressing down on his back. "The thing about machines," Marcus said, his voice strained now, "is that they always have limits. They always have failure points, even simulations, especially simulations, because simulations are just code, and code has to make assumptions. It has to have rules, and rules can be broken." After 5 hours, there was barely any space left. Marcus was compressed into a position that had to be agonizing. The walls were touching him on all sides. "So here is my question," he said, speaking to me now, somehow knowing I was listening. "What happens if I just do not move? If I let the walls keep coming? Does the simulation actually crush me? Does it simulate my death? Or does it just stop?" I pulled up the level 20 protocols. He was right. The simulation was designed to generate psychological pressure, but it could not actually harm the participant. The walls would reach a certain point and then automatically trigger a withdrawal sequence to prevent injury to the neural interface. Marcus had figured it out. "You cannot actually hurt me," he said, his voice barely a whisper now in that tiny compressed space. "This is all just pressure, just stress, just seeing if I will break." The walls reached their safety limit. The simulation paused, level 20 complete. When we disconnected Marcus from the neural interface, he collapsed out of the chair onto the floor, gasping, shaking, covered in sweat. "That," he said between breaths, "was significantly worse than coolant maintenance." I helped him sit up. Krill brought him water. We waited while he recovered. "Nobody has ever completed level 20, I said finally. "Cool. Do I get that certificate now?" "Marcus Webb, you do not understand. What you have accomplished, it is unprecedented. No species has ever progressed this far. The Council they will not know what to make of this." "So is that a yes on the certificate?" I laughed. I could not help it. This human had just done something that champions and warriors and the finest minds in the galaxy had failed to do, and he wanted a certificate for his personnel file. "Yes," I said. "Yes, you can have a certificate." "Awesome." He stood up slowly, testing his legs. "Same time tomorrow? You want to continue? I mean, we are on a roll here. Might as well see how far we can go." Over the next 6 cycles, Marcus Webb completed 47 more levels. He talked his way through a hostage negotiation scenario. He MacGyvered a weapon out of spare parts in a combat level. He solved a logic puzzle that had stumped philosophers for generations by approaching it from a completely different angle than intended. He survived a viral outbreak scenario by quarantining himself and waiting it out. At level 68, he encountered an artificial intelligence that was supposed to manipulate him into making a catastrophic mistake. Marcus recognized it as an AI within the first 5 minutes and spent the rest of the level trying to have a philosophical conversation with it about the nature of consciousness. The AI eventually let him pass just to make him stop talking. Level 100 arrived on the 9th cycle of testing. The Galactic Council had started watching. Word had spread. The human who was breaking every record, from the maintenance technician who was doing the impossible. Level 100 was meant to be symbolic, a milestone. Most species celebrated reaching even this far, even though completion of the full 743 levels had never been seriously expected. The simulation placed Marcus in a recreation of first contact between 2 hostile species. His objective, broker peace. It should have been impossible. The 2 species in question had fundamental incompatibilities. Their biology, their psychology, their entire worldview. Marcus listened to both sides present their grievances for approximately 10 minutes, then held up his hand. "Okay, stop. Stop. Both of you just stop talking for a second." The simulated ambassadors looked offended. "Here is the thing," Marcus said. "You are both wrong. You are both right. You both have legitimate concerns and you are both being stubborn about it. So here is what we are going to do. We are going to find a compromise. Not because either of you wins. Not because either of you loses. But because continuing to fight is stupid and Wasteful, and eventually one of you is going to do something you cannot take back. He spent the next hour mediating, finding common ground, pointing out shared interests, occasionally telling both sides that they were being ridiculous. It should not have worked. It did. Level 100 complete. The council sent a formal message. They wanted to meet Marcus Webb. They wanted to understand how a human, a species so new to the galactic stage, could achieve what their finest champions could not. I sat down with Marcus before his meeting with the council. "They are going to ask you how you did it," I said. "What your secret is." "I do not have a secret," Marcus said, drinking his terrible coffee. I do not know. I kept going. That is all. I saw a problem. I figured out a solution. I moved forward. It cannot be that simple." "Why not?" "Why not?" I did not have an answer for that. The council meeting was held in the Grand Assembly Chamber, with representatives from 47 species present. Marcus stood at the center, looking deeply uncomfortable with all the attention. The High Chancellor of the Yithian Collective spoke first. "Marcus Webb, you have accomplished something no individual in recorded history has managed. We must know. How did your species produce such a warrior?" "I am not a warrior," Marcus said. "I am a maintenance technician." "Then how did a maintenance technician succeed where warriors failed?" Marcus thought about it for a moment. "Maybe because I am not a warrior," he said finally. "Warriors are trained to fight, to conquer, to win. But the trials were not really about fighting. They were about surviving, about adapting, about not giving up." He shrugged. "That is just what humans do. We adapt, we improvise. We keep going even when things are terrible because I do not know. What else are we supposed to do? Quit. Quit." The chamber was silent. "Besides," Marcus added, "most of those levels were not actually that hard. They just seemed hard. Once you realize that the simulation cannot actually kill you, that it is all just testing your reactions, it becomes a lot less scary. It is like maintenance work. Sometimes things look impossible until you actually start working on the problem. Then you realize it is just a series of small steps. You fix one thing, then fix the next thing. You keep fixing things until the job is done." The High Chancellor exchanged glances with the other council members. "You did not view the trials as a test of your limits," another council member said slowly. "You viewed them as a job to complete." "I guess so, yeah." More silence. More silence. Then the Thake's ambassador, one of those floating squid beings who think they are superior to everyone, began to laugh. It started as a small bubbling sound and grew until the entire chamber could hear it. "He is right," the Thex said. "We have been approaching the trials wrong for 3,000 cycles. We send our best warriors, our champions, individuals trained to view challenges as tests of strength and honor. But the trials were never about strength. They were about persistence, about continuing despite fear, about refusing to quit even when victory seems impossible." The High Chancellor nodded slowly. "The humans understand something we had forgotten. That survival is not glorious. It is not heroic. It is simply necessary. And sometimes the most qualified individual is not the strongest or the smartest, but the one who is too stubborn to know when they should give up." "I am not sure if that is a compliment," Marcus said. "It is the highest compliment we can offer," the High Chancellor replied. "Marcus Webb, the Galactic Council formally accepts humanity as a full member species. Your performance in the trials has demonstrated that your people possess qualities we value greatly: resilience, adaptability, and a refreshing disregard for the supposed impossibility of tasks. Cool. So, do I still get the certificate?" The High Chancellor actually smiled at that. "You will receive far more than a certificate, Marcus Webb. You will receive the Star of Perseverance, the highest honor we can bestow. Your name will be recorded in the archives as the first individual to progress beyond level 100 in the trials of Krell. You will be remembered for generations." Marcus looked uncomfortable with all of this. That is great and everything, but I really do need to get back to Europa Station. Tony has been covering my shifts for almost 2 weeks now, and he is definitely going to flood the lower decks if I am not there to stop him. And that, I think, sums up humanity better than anything else. They accomplish the impossible, receive the highest honors in the galaxy, and immediately worry about coolant regulators. Marcus Webb returned to Europa Station 3 cycles later, certificate in hand, along with enough formal commendations to fill an entire wall. According to the last report I received, he framed the certificate and hung it in his workspace. The commendations went into a drawer somewhere. Humanity was granted full council membership, and over the following cycles, they proved to be exactly what Marcus had demonstrated: adaptable, persistent, frustratingly difficult to discourage. The trials of Krell were eventually retired, not because they were no longer useful, but because Marcus Webb had fundamentally broken the mystique. Once everyone knew that the key to success was simply refusing to quit, the trials lost their power. Some species complained about this, said that humanity had ruined a proud tradition. I disagreed. I think humanity taught us something important: that sometimes the most valuable quality is not strength or intelligence or skill. Sometimes it is just the stubborn refusal to accept that something cannot be done. Marcus Webb was not special. He was not a genius. He was not a warrior. He was just too stubborn to know when he should have quit. And sometimes that is enough.